Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome back, you beautiful people. It's Friday, July 11th here on the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew, future golf instructor Betz.
You're saying if this doesn't work out, that's the next phase of life for me?
I'm saying, you know what? If this doesn't work out, this podcast is just over, then you might need to start looking into a new profession.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I hear you're hitting the links soon, is what you said, so I'm interested to hear how that goes. But, dude, it's golf season, man. I, been trying to get out more, see sunlight, touch the grass, as they say, because, my friend, in 2.5 weeks, training camp is here. And, man, like, if anybody is trying to max some of these best ball contests or just, like, get ready for the season, we got redraft right around the corner, like, it's here, man. Football is right around the corner. So I'm excited. I don't know if you've been watching any of the quarterback documentary on Netflix, but I have been watching Kirk Cousins' slow, painful season unfold in real time. And I'm just getting so excited for the season, just kind of watching football highlights and all those things. So I'm excited, man. Today's show should be great. And like I said, we're weeks away, man. Weeks away.
I can't watch documentary for personal reasons. And yes, it's for Kirk. Because not just as a Falcons fan, but I know his extended family. They're from the same area. Actually,
friends of the show.
Yeah, friends of the show. Actually, one of them messaged me recently. He does listen to our shows. And I can't watch a train wreck. I know it's going to happen. And so I got to live through you telling me that it's going to be okay.
Yeah, it's going to be fine, Kyle. Don't worry about it.
You think he's going to be fine, like as a person monetarily?
No, he's going to have to pick up a part-time job at Panera to figure this
Kohl's.
out. Okay, so I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but there's a couple scenes like in the first few episodes.
He gets replaced at quarterback. Spoiler alert.
There's a couple scenes in the first couple episodes that, like, as a dad, you just relate to these. He's just like a regular guy. Like, they stop at, Cookout after an amazing win. Like, if you live in the South, if you've ever been to Cookout, Cookout's great. He also gets his haircut at Great Clips. I mean, this is a simple man. I'll always love Kirk for the human being he is. Sadly, his best days of football are behind him, but oh man, what a guy.
For a 4th round draft pick, congrats, man.
What a
you
career.
Are in the Hall of Fame when it comes to contracts, and good for you. But on this podcast, Betz and I are going to be talking league winners. We're saying players in best ball this year that you need to be overexposed. There is this period right now, you mentioned before training camp, where there's been a little bit of lull in best ball activity. Last week we were off for 4th of July. I think that's like the first episode that's ever lined up for us where we were off ever. I can't remember ever taking off one, but there's been a little bit of lull, and we're trying to reignite your love for best ball because it's about to keep up. We often talk about a barbell approach. A lot at the beginning, keep drafting, and then there is this point in July where it's okay if you hold off if you want to save your bankroll. We're about to pick up over the next couple of months leading into the NFL season, which is not too far away. So we'll be talking about league winners, even mentioning some of the names last year that we got correct. Like, I had a good year in best ball, and it was because of some of the nasties, like some of the true players that no one else wanted. And so maybe we'll mention a couple of those today. But I did want to give us a couple of announcements at the very, very top. Thank you, Mike. We have added a new DFS writer to our crew. His name is Chris Cash. If you are involved in our Discord, you have seen the name. If you've also ever been at the top of a leaderboard, you've probably seen Chris's name, including Best Ball last year, where he was right there first the entire time. DraftKings Millie Maker. What did he finish? 3rd? 2nd?
I think 3rd.
Okay, not a big deal, right? But he's also played in a lot of other ways, so he'll be helping a lot of our DraftKings content, including right now some best ball articles that are out that are DraftKings related. So Chris is kind of like you, but if you went a bit further in the DGen, plays every DFS possible.
Who, me or the listener?
You tell me.
Kyle, I don't know if that's a dig or what that is, but no, man, Chris is great. He had his first article go up on the site for us just this week, so check it out. Looking at DraftKings ADP, comparing it to projections in the Ultimate Draft Kit, our best ball rankings, and trying to identify players that are overvalued or potential fades based off DraftKings landscape. So awesome article. More to come from Chris, not only this summer, but obviously in season as well. Definitely excited to have him on the team.
All right, and I get to hit this button one more time. Thank you, Mike. Before our little holiday break where we celebrated America, the country, and just, my distaste for fireworks. Gosh, I hate fireworks.
Gosh, you're so old.
It's the worst. I've never been impressed. And here's the reason why. I don't know if I've ever explained this on the podcast. As a kid, I played video games like Super Mario, where after the level, I remember, Mario World, my Super NES, you win, and then the fireworks go up and it becomes a shape of Mario's face. And I thought, wow, that's cool. I never get to see fireworks like that. You can do drone shows like that, but fireworks just are loud. My dog hates it, and I don't like it.
Yeah, the dog lost his mind for like 3 days around us. I mean, obviously Friday for the 4th, they were done.
It was a couple of days.
And on Saturday, and then all of a sudden Sunday night at 9, I'm like, are you kidding me? This poor dog's been through so much this last couple of days. So for that reason, I'm with you, but they're nice to do. I feel like once a year. But like one night, I'm good.
Yeah, I don't really need this in my life, but we did put out the call, and we randomly selected. We asked our HR team to randomly select a couple of names that gave reviews of this podcast, and we're gonna give 2 out because I said I would give out a free t-shirt. Let's give t-shirts to 2 people. That's on the spot. I'm just gonna pick another review. So you read the one, and I'll just add another.
Love it. He's in the Christmas spirit early this year. I love it. Really appreciate all you guys with the reviews and stuff. There was a ton of great ones. The one that was randomly selected for the t-shirt, the first one, 5 stars for these 2 superstars. I've been listening to the DFS and Betting podcast for a while now, and it gets better and better each and every week. Borg Betz are 2 superstars that keep dishing out cold, hard facts and stats all the time. These stats have helped me with my fantasy football lineups and my betting slips. This is the important part, which help pay for my wedding in October, which is, congratulations on that. But that's super fun to be like, I'm paying for my wedding through DFS. What a fun thing to do. So congrats to this listener, and thank you again for all the reviews. Just DM me or Kyle or both of us, and we'll get you hooked up.
And also, you can also, if you're interested, if your spouse is really that thankful for this podcast, we'll take an invite. That'd be great. I'd love to go to a wedding.
We could be +1s together.
I guess. Yeah, I don't want to bring my entire family.
No, gosh,
that's just too much. So, invite us to a wedding. Jason's plan all along is that the whole reason to create the Foot Clan and, people is that he wanted people to meet online from our podcast and get married one day. That's all he wants.
I'm sure it's happened at least once.
Yeah. All right, I'll give out another one. This one's from Leighton K. It's entitled Free Money, 5 stars, a year-round sports betting show with in-depth analysis and recommendations that can help all the football junkies win some extra money. Pair that with some mild-mannered dad humor, and you will get one heck of a show. Keep up the good work, gentlemen. And I think at the end of the day, if you found some value in this podcast, value in the DFS pass and what we get to do, it is a rare thing in a world where, people are always asking for your money, subscriptions, all that stuff, to be able to say we can actually help people in a smart way. We're not saying this is a stone cold guarantee. This is what's going to happen with your bankroll unless you subscribe to Betz's, elite picks that you get only over the phone. But it does help people. It's really encouraging to me to have a podcast that it does help people pay for their wedding or it pays for itself. There is a really, really bad side to DFS and betting where this becomes a money pit. But hopefully this is a hobby that for some of you, you can turn into extra cash or, you win a tournament and that's life-changing stuff. So good stuff here. If you want everything, you can get them at ultimatedraftkit.com. Be a part of our in-season stuff. Our best ball rankings and primer are up. Our season-long player props are going to continue to come out. Betz has been firing those off in the Discord. And then DFS is right around the corner. So we got a lot of good stuff, but We're going to talk all of our best picks that will never fail today.
Best Ball Bonanza.
We've entitled this before Best Ball Champions. I can't remember why I did that. I think I wanted to differentiate, but I think League Winners gets more clicks.
That's what it's all about. I mean, if you guys don't click the links, we don't get paid. So come on.
Paid per click. That's how writing definitely works in the fantasy football space, is per click. I looked back the last couple of years because we've done this episode, and the reason why we do this in July is you and I look back at our exposures, and we look at the players that we've either taken stances on the rankings or, man, this player's really, really high up. Now, there are some years where I clicked a player a lot, and I wouldn't call them a winner. It's just I ended up with this player because they were, going around pick 180 or whatever. I will not declare that Marshawn Lloyd is a league winner this year, but I have clicked the button a lot on that man, and I would love to recoup some of the investment in that strategy. You tell me if it's a smart strategy or not, but I will not call him a league winner or champion. Do you have any names like that off the top of your head that you're like, I've clicked the button, I'm not saying this, but I'm also saying it?
I know that's the thing, right? Is like these year 2 running backs that we talked a lot about that, whether it's on the Dynasty show or this show, about you hit us with a lot of great research showing that these guys get more touches than you realize, even when their rookie season is kind of a disaster. And when you look at those bell cows that stayed so healthy last year, naturally, if chaos ensues, which generally it tends to do at the running back position, those types of guys could be league winners. We're not going to call them that on the show today because then we would be saying Josh Jacobs is getting hurt this year, but obviously those things happen. So yeah, I mean, I've clicked the button a ton on Will Shipley until he gets up to the 170s. He still hangs out in the 180s. Sometimes he'll fall to the 190s on DraftKings. So a couple of those guys. You talked about Trey Benson quite a bit. Yeah, I'm kind of right back in on those year 2 running backs this year, and just really honestly, the archetypes of kind of how a lot of the teams I'm building, like if chaos ensues and I start wide receiver heavy in the first several rounds, these are the guys that you kind of have to take, right? Like the upside swings, like the Algiers and those types of guys that are like definitely locked into RB2 roles. And I'll probably mix up that a little bit more as we get into camp and we definitely understand who the RB2 is on each team and that sort of thing. But right now there's 5 to 7 maybe.
Yes. Like
for sure RB2s in their team, and those are the ones I'm clicking. So yeah, Lloyd, Shipley, Algier, those types, Ray Davis a little bit here and there. So yeah, those are the guys I've been clicking, but and in order for them to be league winners, more than likely than not, injury has to happen to the guy in front of them.
Yeah, Jalen Wright, those kind of guys. I'm clicking the button, and my analysis is this: football is not what you think. It's chaos, and in this format, there will be chaos. I don't know which one it is. You cannot use last year's stats for really any of those guys and say this is what's going to happen. Like Ray Davis was fine for a rookie. He wasn't bad. The other guys were bad or irrelevant. So we're kind of just betting on a group that's cheaper than what they are. But so that's like my whisper. I actually did write that on the doc. I don't know if you saw. I did. I even wrote the word whisper because I wanted to mention it and then not come back to it. But
perfect.
I went back to the last couple years' docs, and in 2022, you had probably one of the best calls of anybody. You mentioned Ramondre Stevenson as you pounded the table saying, I'm taking this guy. He's one of your highest running backs. I had Chris Olave in there. That was one of my guys. In 2023, there was this group of running backs that we just kind of kept taking. David Montgomery feels like he shows up as a really good value pick, and he's pretty much in the same spot. But in 2023, he was a pick that we really talked about. And then last year, we had some swings, we had some misses, and we had some connects. So Jane Daniels was one of the quarterbacks that we just said, just keep taking him. And that one looked really, really good. I did want to note that his advance rate was just good. It was actually not great. It's 21%. And the reason why a lot of the advance rates, which we'll talk about today, are skewed is because Burrow and Chase literally broke the spreadsheets. So you didn't have as many league-winning quarterbacks last year. But some other names that we mentioned last year, I'll just throw them out there. James Cook was the running back that we kept talking about over and over again. Chase Brown, you mentioned the Bengals running backs, just saying take shots on it. That looked good. I mentioned Pacheco. That is painful and kind of sad. At wide receiver, some swings and misses last year.
This was rough.
It was not good. Now, I will come back to say the really cheap guys, we did really well on, and I'll explain that in just a little bit. And then at tight end last year, we mentioned Trey McBride and Mark Andrews. I mean, we joke about Mark Andrews, but he was fine. Probably not good at his ADP. And then Trey McBride, his advance rate, did you know was only 17% last year?
That's crazy to me. I mean, I guess on a half PPR site that makes sense given the lack of touchdowns, but I would have definitely thought it'd be higher.
Yeah, and advance rate, we have a lot of articles on the website, but basically, like, how does this player do in allowing a team to advance to, week 15? And it really, the context of that is the opportunity cost of what does this player have to do at their ADP. So he was 45th overall last year, but if you look who else went around him, that's why his advance rate is not as good, because Lamar went right after him. Josh Jacobs went after him. Terry McLaurin. So if you would have clicked the button on those guys instead of McBride and then made it up elsewhere at tight end, that's why. So McBride was awesome. I don't regret saying that he is a league winner last year. He just didn't get the touchdowns in a format where we need touchdowns. That's important, they say. So let's take a quick break, and then we will reveal all of these beautiful names. Starting at the quarterback position, we will kind of give some criteria. So the way that Betz and I describe a league winner is not just here's a player take, and here's why I like this player. They kind of have to fit a criteria. And often we talk about an advance rate. They need to be at 20% or above at the quarterback position. The last couple of years, 8 quarterbacks did it in 2021, 9 in 2022, 10 in 2023, and only 6 last year because Joe Burrow was at 40%. If you had Joe Burrow and Chase, if you had that stack, it pretty much won your league. It's just wild. But I did want to throw this out there because over the last 4 years, only a third of the quarterbacks taken in the top 100 have hit this 20% advance rate. So that means that of the guys going, there are 9 quarterbacks right now going in the top 100. Based on this data, 3 of them will hit. And hit in a big way. I mean, you can obviously cobble together a couple, but our strategy often is if you take an elite, you don't need to take multiple of the elite. So it kind of comes down to you figuring out who are the landmines here, or who's not as good, or who is not as good at the end of the year, which we cannot predict. So I will let you start first, Betz. And you are not mentioning, well, you are mentioning Drake May, but the people already know that.
I was going to say that's the real answer here, but I didn't want to come on the show and talk about Drake May for the 7th time this summer already. So in passing, if you've missed any of the shows recently, Drake May. However, this is the sweet spot we've been talking about all year, right? It's kind of when you get to like QB 10, 11, 12 to like QB 18, 19. There's a bunch of names I really wanted to go with. One guy that we haven't talked a ton about this year that I did want to highlight today that I've been taking a ton recently is Dak Prescott. And it kind of feels like to me, we've done this before. Dak's fine where he goes is kind of the vibe I'm getting in the rooms I'm in. But man, like you look at Dak's career and when he's been healthy and played a full season, he has finished as a top 12 fantasy quarterback every single time. So you could make the argument we're drafting Dak Prescott essentially at his floor where he goes. And especially on DraftKings, which is just a beautiful place this time of year. He had the Q tag this week still because of the hamstring surgery from last year. He will fall a little bit further. He goes as the quarterback 14 over there. When you look at Dallas, we've talked a lot about this, or I have anyway. We talked about that 2 weeks ago along the lines of like him leading the league in passing. To me, you look at their personnel moves, it just makes so much sense when you're looking at what this team wants to do. They trade for George Pickens. They signed Javonte Williams, who obviously is not the most efficient runner at this point in his career, but he's a pretty good pass protector. That's one thing he did very well last year. So they signed a good pass protecting back in Javonte. They draft an explosive pass catching archetype back in Jaden Blue. It's very clear to me what the offensive identity is going to be. It's going to be Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and George Pickens. And when you're looking at kind of where he goes, thinking about like arbitrage type plays, the ceiling outcomes for Dak Prescott, in my opinion, are not that different than what you're looking at for if Joe Burrow regresses. I think there's a possibility that could be a similar outcome. Pat Mahomes, we've been waiting 2 years for this thing to take off again, and it hasn't. Baker Mayfield is a pretty obvious regression candidate. Like I just think Dak is priced too far down the board compared to those other types of pocket passers that I've been taking a ton of them this year. So I'm in on Dak. I think the pace is going to be up there as far as their neutral pace and pass rate and all those things. Just makes a ton of sense. And looking at the defensive side of the ball, they've got some firepower as far as like their stars on defense, obviously, but the depth is a major issue. Mike Clay has them and 24th in his unit grades looking at their defense. So again, you're thinking about, could this be a shootout team? I think it's almost likely that that's going to happen here with Dak. So they will live and die by Dak throwing the football this year. And as a result, I've been taking him a ton.
The fear with Dallas is that they're going to revert to the Ezekiel Elliott days where like, oh, they're just going to, they really want to run the football because that's what Jerry Jones wants to do. Except that we have the exact same play caller. Like we have the dude that designed the offense that has been most successful when it's pass happy. So I'm not worried about the running game. I want pieces of this running game, but I think Dak in the pass game is what you want to do. And I want to give a shout out to Pat Thorman of ETR. He described their backfield perfectly. He had a recent article about pace, but he says this roster screams pass with the top 5 wide receiver duo, a solid receiving tight end, an elite passer, and a clown car backfield. It's like, I don't really know who else is going to pop out of that backfield. And if you want to take shots on Jaden Blute, that's fine. I love where he's going in this spot in the draft. Like, you're not asking him to do anything crazy. And yet, every season of his career, when he's played the full season, he beats this ADP. So I think he can do better than just QB 12, QB 13. Like, what would you say is a ceiling outcome for Dak this year?
I mean, when you just look at what he's done in his career, he's has a QB 6 finish, a QB 2 finish, 7, QB 3 just 2 years ago. So I think if variance breaks right in the touchdown department, which is always the case with these pocket passers, he could be a top 5 quarterback this year. Just depends on what the other guys do at his position and obviously the touchdowns. But I think that is potentially in the range of outcomes. So I will say ceiling is probably around like quarterback 5, but this feels like his ADP is too low for his floor, in my opinion.
It feels like we're back where we've been before, where he ends up being a value and we just forget how good Dak can be. Like I was looking this up right now. Before he got injured in week 9, he was throwing the ball 37 times a game. It was like, I think Geno was the only one throwing the ball more before he got injured. So the plan was to throw the football. And now we don't just move ahead to 2025 and all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, now Javante's the engine of this offense. Miles Sanders and Jaden Blue is how this offense is going to flow. It's going to be CeeDee Lamb. It's going to be George Pickens. And then your boy Turd Ferg, if you want to throw in there. So I like the Dak pick. I have been taking him a lot. I have you and I mentioned basically these same quarterbacks like as like the range where you mentioned May, you mentioned Dak, and I'm about to mention Justin Herbert. But it's like, I just want this tier so much, and I'm willing to double tap in this tier.
I almost went with Brock Purdy for this category too. Like Purdy,
you already have enough money invested in him.
So much, dude. Purdy, Herbert, Lawrence, JJ McCarthy, like all of these dudes, I think are really good picks this year. But I'm interested to get your take on Herbert because he feels like quarterback 17 almost just doesn't make sense to me. But when you look at their moves, as far as like Omar Hampton, Najee Harris, I think people are a little concerned about the pass rate. So hit me with Big Herb.
All right. So the last thing that happened to Justin Herbert, the last thing on a lot of people's minds is that he had a 4 INT playoff game. And it was bad. And yes, there were parts that were definitely bad. The entire year, he had 3 INTs before that. And so that's like the big storyline. It's like, oh, he imploded. Look how bad he was. One of those is Will Disley's fault. Okay.
Yeah.
So blame Big Montana. Will. But he was super consistent when they figured out that they were bad at running the football. Like the Greg Roman offense, the fear at the beginning of the year was like, oh, they're just going to run the ball and it won't be valuable at all. What they realized is, yes, we're going to run the ball, but we're bad at it. They were super inefficient. You know that they were stuffed at the line more than any other team in football. It was like 50% of their runs were stuffed at the line. So the running game didn't work. And then after their week 5 bye, Justin Herbert was 6th in neutral pass rate, 7th in adjusted completion percentage, 8th in passing yards per game, 8th in EPA per pass, and then my favorite, 5th in explosive pass rate. So the offense opened up, and that's where you saw Ladd McConkey just completely blow up. They invested more in offensive playmakers for Justin Herbert, Marion Hampton, Trey Harris, Aronde Gadsden, who's a fun little, late tight end. We just didn't get ceiling games last year. He only had 1 game with 3 passing touchdowns. I don't think that will hold up. But even a year where it was like, I don't really remember, was he good or bad? He was QB 13. So he's kind of like forgotten despite highest QB rating, highest yards per attempt. He was super efficient last year. So I think I'm just buying into this team, and Vegas really likes this team as a 9.5, 10-win team. And they've lost some pieces on defense. This isn't the same exact. Joey Bosa's gone. He's always gone anyways. He's never really there. But I think at the end of the day, I'm buying into the Chargers for the 38 millionth time of my life, and yet the prices are not there for their quarterback. So it's very easy to stack him with Ladd, obviously, but there's also a lot of other late stacking partners. Like I've been taking Cuge because you can take Herbert and then tack on Cuge later. If you want to throw in a tight end at the very end, if it's Conklin or Gadsden, I'm totally fine with that. But it's a cheap team that projects to make the playoffs, and I just love Herbert, and he's super efficient.
Yeah, the nice thing with Herbert, too, that I feel like nobody talks about is this dude quietly set career highs in both rush attempts and rush yards.
Boom.
With Greg Roman, despite playing through a high ankle sprain in like late September, early October, for like 3 or 4 weeks. So they've talked about that, too, this offseason with his rush rate and some design stuff, that Herbert's always been pretty athletic, like going back to those days at Oregon and stuff. He just hasn't really showcased a huge ceiling as a runner. I kind of feel like we might see one of these years where you look back and you're like, wow, I didn't expect that from Herbert. Maybe he gets lucky in the touchdown department running the football or something like that too, to add some explosive pass game elements to what he does. So I do think last year's numbers as far as the week 16 to 18 split in the pass rate is probably just a result of them being inefficient running the football. I think when you look at a first-round running back and Najee Harris and the investments in offensive line, like that's what Greg Roman wants to do. So you'll probably need to hit on efficiency here with Herbert, but like you said, he's been one of the best passers in the league off play action. They're going to use play action a ton. And if he uses his legs as much as I think he will this year and that continues, then it almost feels like it's like how does he not beat off quarterback 17 in terms of his ADP here? So I'm with you. Again, he's part of the group that we love this year at this part of the draft.
This isn't a perfect way to explain this, but Justin Herbert, if you look at MVP odds, all right, which is a quarterback award, right? It's at 18-1. So he actually has the 7th shortest odds. And yet for fantasy, he's being viewed as outside the top 15. Now, those don't always correlate, back and forth. You can win the MVP award and be different in fantasy, but really, like, what the betting markets are saying is that we view this player as a top tier player. Like he's right behind Jalen Hurts, who's at 17-1. So if he adds a little bit on the ground, and he was doing it last year, his TD rate returns to north of 5%. He maybe even gets to 6%. Like he's had seasons of 31 passing touchdowns and 38 passing touchdowns. He can do that type of stuff. So 30 plus passing touchdowns, I think, is on the table, where you can't really say that about too many quarterbacks late, that this is an offense that projects to be really, really good. They were better when they let him just totally chuck it, and they've added playmakers. So I just want to figure out ways to lose money on the Chargers, and I this is one way to tell people how to do it.
There's no way this goes wrong. It never does with the Chargers. No, man, we're back again. What could go wrong? Should we kick it over to running back?
Let's do that, because quarterback is interesting because we're only taking 2 to 3. When you and I talk about league winners at running backs and wide receivers, it feels like we can cheat a little bit and mention a bunch of names, but we're going to really focus on just some top-end names. Hopefully our rankings reflect certain running backs that we are really into and running backs that we are not into, RJ Harvey. So what you need at running back.
RJ Harvey catching strays on a league winners podcast. Kyle, come on, man.
Dude, I have as many carries in the NFL as that guy.
That's true.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys appreciate these silly little shticks. RJ Harvey's going to be fine. Here's what a running back needs to be a league winner. This is how we classify it. They need sustained greatness. We need at least 5 top 12 weeks. So, it's one thing to call somebody like Justice Hill a league winner because he gave you some top 24 weeks. Wasn't really that helpful last year. Like he was not helpful unless you paired him with Henry, I guess. You also probably need other elite running backs to fail. So last year, there were a lot of league winners. Like I'm looking at this list last year, and there's 10 plus guys that we could say, if you had them in best ball, they were awesome. Saquon, Derrick Henry, Chuba, Josh Jacobs, Chase Brown, Kyron, Bucky. It's like all these guys were really, really good last year and could have helped you. But if other running backs fail, it makes them feel even more elite. So like in 2023, we had a year where all of the elite guys pretty much failed to return their costs. CMC, Eckler, Taylor, Saquon was still with the Giants, not good. Henry got hurt. So that's kind of another way to look at this is like there's chaos and we're not saying the other running backs get injured, but if they do, then the running backs we have are even better. And we want an advance rate above 22%. There's about 10 per year that fit this mark. So you go first.
Yeah, before I get into talking about this player, which is Devon Achane, how would you describe the Dolphins season?
Last year?
Good, bad, average, train wreck?
Oh, man.
Frustrating.
We're about to preview them. They were really bad at running the ball, and they didn't have any big plays. That's how I could like condense everything I want to say.
Yeah, and it felt like sometimes watching them was just frustrating, right? Like the season as a whole was disappointing based off of preseason expectations where you say, you've got Achane, Waddle, Tyreek, this should be one of the most high-flying offenses in the league.
I'm a disappointed father.
Not mad, just disappointed. You know, we've all been there. And even with all those things considered, Devon Achane, who's going in the second round right now, was going in the second round last year, had an advance rate of 23%. So even last year where I would say the Dolphins offense hit like a 50th percentile outcome was fine, Devon Achane was still great. So he's coming off the board at RB7. And the reason I'm so bullish on him this year, looking at kind of some of his usage and looking at what it really takes to be just like an outlier performer at running back, you obviously have to have the ability to score touchdowns, which he can do in this offense. You have to have the pass catching upside to really kind of be a complete outlier, unless you're Derrick Henry or something. But this pass catching role is just absurd. In Tua's starts last year, he was targeted on 29% of his routes. He's basically being treated like a wide receiver plus a running back. The cheat code type of stuff that you're seeing at running back here. And looking at that, you know, I think there's an argument that could be made. It could get better this year. It's almost hard to envision that scenario. But I feel like with the loss of Jonnu Smith or the trade of Jonnu Smith, it at least keeps it kind of steady right where it's at. Looking at the UDK at our projections, we've got him for a healthy amount of targets. I just think it's so likely to stick. And then if you get that continuing with the rushing volume and the efficiency just bounces back somewhere in the middle of where it was 2 years ago as a rookie and this past year, amazing things are going to happen for fantasy. So am I worried about the Dolphins? Yes. Do I think that there's a chance Mike McDaniel gets fired? Yes. But in this game that we play, we're drafting as if we're right. We're building for those optimal outcomes that happen. And Devon Achane's ceiling, now that Jonnu Smith is gone, is just absurd. And so there's just so many ways where it hits, right? Jonnu's gone. He sees that ridiculous pass game. Tyreek Hill does fall off again in this season, as we saw last year. The RB2 situation behind him is not good. It's Jalen Wright, it's Alexander Mattison, it's Ollie Gordon, a day 3 pick. And when I look at this team, PFF has the secondary ranked 29th in the league. So I think there's a world that exists where this Dolphins team has to win because of the offense. And you just see ridiculous performances from the offense that they're pushing the ball. You know, they're creating those explosive plays again. So I'm in on Devon Achane. I feel like in any other year, based off his talent profile and all those things, he's probably somewhere around pick 8 to 12 in normal years. But this year, the first round is so strong in fantasy that I feel like he's going to stick in round 2 at his ADP. And as long as that is the case, I am very in on Devon Achane.
Yeah, he's the one running back at the beginning of round 2 that you and I have held steady on the whole time. So this isn't one of those like Tudor horns. It's just we looked at the range of outcomes. And when you get to the second round, I have a number of running backs that are pushed down. The Bucky, Josh Jacobs, JTT are down for me. I'm not getting a lot of those. I am getting a lot of Achane, I'm getting some Henry there, but like in the second round, like those are the running backs that I really, really want. And so we have him 14th overall in our rankings. I'm looking at the type of targets he gets too. Like I've been doing a little bit of a study of like check down targets aren't that valuable. Third down targets, whatever that is, not as valuable. Early down targets that are not check down are the most valuable targets because they're predictable. And no one in the NFL was targeted more on early downs last year than Devon Achane. 70 of his targets ahead of Kamara, Bijan, Brees. That's awesome stuff. And then with the Dolphins, I'm betting on the fact that Mike McDaniel who's feeling a little bit of maybe pressure. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's the type of dude, the way that his personality is, just like, I don't give a fart. Like, who cares?
It seems like he doesn't care.
No,
but he's on the hot
not at
seat.
all. No, he's the dude is just farting away, sniffing his own farts.
Farts everywhere.
Yeah, for this guy. But I do feel like he's the type of person that is ready to innovate because he's always been an innovator when he was with San Francisco and then here. And he has to kind of reset the way that this team functioned last year, where 27% of the targets went to the tight end position. The year before, it was just 9%. I expect it to be around like 12%, 10 to 12% this year. And they're going to have to shift how the offense functions. They also have to have 3 new projected starters on the O-line. So a lot of changes. So I'm just throwing out last year's statistics for the wide receivers, the functionality of the offense, the big plays. And I feel that you're going to return there. It also, because I'm bullish on Achane, that's why I said I have been taking a good amount of Jalen Wright. I'm just buying into this offense.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in teams where I don't have Devon Achane, Jalen Wright makes a lot of sense. I think he's the odds-on favorite to be the RB2. Right now, when you look at Madison's contract, and Alec Gordon was, a 6th-round pick, it's pretty clear who the top 2 backs are.
All right, my pick for league winner feels almost like I'm cheating here, and yet I've been taking this running back at an absurd level. I just started in May, and I haven't looked back. I haven't moved off of Christian McCaffrey. And for a running back to be a league winner in the first round, you cannot have them be good and return their value. Like, Christian McCaffrey is being drafted as the RB4. I need him to be the RB1 or 2 this year for him to really. So that's like kind of how you're calling your shot. When he's on the field, you know he's the dude. As a 49er, so no, we're not bringing up Carolina Panther stats anymore. Since he's been a 49er, he's averaged 21 opportunities and 115 total yards per game. You know he's good. I'm not worried about his age stuff. I know all the worries are, but this is the format. If you're going to be taking somebody and having a stance on, it's CMC if you want a hero running back build. And if you're saying some of the other running backs around him fail, he's been a relative value. Like, for a while, CMC was like right there at the 1-2 turn. Now he's consistently been moving upwards where he's at 7.9 in ADP. He's been there all along. You know, you and I just sitting there, just waiting, just in the shadows, where I've been taking him ahead of guys. I've been taking him personally ahead of Genty, still been taking some Genty, but ahead of the wide receivers there. So I have a lot of CMC, and I'm basically asking him to be historic, which if he plays, we know he can be historic. So we couple that with all of our stuff we talked about, the 49ers, the easiest schedule in the league per Warren Sharp, the Super Bowl odds. He's the dude, and I've drafted him that way.
Yeah, number 1 in terms of strength of schedule. They are the number 1 positive regression candidate when it comes to bad injury luck from the previous season. 10.5 win total. Kyle Shanahan knows what he's doing. Like, it's pretty clear that if last year and we didn't have the injury type stuff concerns, like, McCaffrey should be a top 3 pick. So you could argue you're getting a little value here, and this is kind of a rare opportunity. So I'm with you, man. Yeah, obviously there's downside risk to any running back as far as injury is concerned, but in this game, to win a tournament, to win, the money, like, you need these outlier performances, and Christian McCaffrey can obviously do that. So yes, I'm with you on that front as well. And just to point out, like, you might think in the back of your head, well, maybe they're concerned about his injury status and maybe they back off a little bit. Like, Kyle Shanahan just is a sicko. Like, there's not a chance that is happening. This guy missed all of August rehabbing, missed the first 9 weeks of the season, comes out of the bye week, 88% of the snaps, 20 opportunities in his first game of the year. There was no easing Christian McCaffrey back in. So whenever he is on the field, he is going to project for 20 touches in a game. So yeah, the upside here is pretty obvious.
Yeah, and just so you need some context, we talk a lot about playoff weeks. So for San Francisco, it's at home against Tennessee, who they are heavily favored against, at Indianapolis, so you get a dome game, and then at home against Chicago. The total right now is around 46.5. All very, very winnable games for a team that at that point of the season could be trending towards having a number 1 seed in the NFC. Like, the NFC, we know there's the Eagles, we know there's the Lions. I feel like they're right there in the mix of teams that we would say they can be there. So I think that he's going to, the usage, like I'm thinking about his usage in those 3 games if I'm building tournament teams. And then I'm thinking about combinations of which wide receivers. And the crazy part is all of those teams have cheap pieces that you can buy into. Tennessee has lots of cheap pieces. I've been taking Calvin Ridley with him. The Colts have a ton of guys. We might be talking about a Colts player later that I've paired a couple times. And then Chicago is a team that we've said overall people want them to bounce back, and you can find some pieces there. So Christian McCaffrey, in a number of places, I just took him in Scott Fishbowl. So I feel really, really good there. That could not go wrong. And then Mike and I's main ballers team, the League of Record team, he is our franchise player. So once again, ask us if we had a good year last year. We had Christian McCaffrey. We did not. We were last place. But we've had good years in the past because we just had Christian McCaffrey for a while. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll talk about wide receivers and tight ends. All right, before we get to wide receivers, I have to ask you a really important question, Betz.
Okay.
What'd you have for lunch today?
Ooh, I had actually leftover grilled chicken, asparagus, and roasted potatoes.
Gosh, that sounds like very healthy of you.
Yeah, it was. It was good.
Okay, because I was eating my lunch on my front porch, and I thought, man, I need to ask Betz this question. And then it just popped in my mind again. Have you ever had Cheetos on a sandwich?
No.
What about chips on a sandwich?
I have.
Okay. I don't normally do it, but we don't normally have Cheetos, and I just decided to put on my sandwich. So I'm just sitting on my front porch eating a turkey sandwich with some Cheeto crunch in there. Just want to know if that's normal.
How old are you, 12?
It was good.
Goodness. Some Dunkaroos at the end?
Oh, man, I wish I could throw some of those in there and add some gushers. Let's go to wide receivers. I mentioned before, we kind of airballed last year. Maybe I was a little too bullish on Devonta Smith and George Pickens. Maybe it didn't work out so well for guys like Jalen Waddle. It's okay. It's okay. I looked at the players we also talked about last year that were gross. And I found that there were 9 wide receivers in best ball last year that had an advance rate of 24% or better. Here are the final 4 to make that list. Okay, so there was 9 of them. Jamar Chase blew it out of the water, 50% advance rate. But the last 4 to make it in were Quentin Johnston, okay, 24% advance rate bets. Who
Obviously.
He was in my top 5 of exposures. I don't know if you knew that.
Nice.
Rashad Bateman, who I talk about way too much on this podcast. Jacoby Myers, who you talk about way too much on this podcast. And Darnell Mooney, who was at 29% advance rate. So like the dirty guys we got right.
The dirty guys that are going to run routes as the wide receiver too is basically the list that you just mentioned right there.
Yeah. And then just for reference, the guys that were really, really good advance rate, Cortland Sutton, who I did not take a lot of, 29%. Terry McLaurin, your boy. Juwan Jennings was at 30%, but he was not, he was drafted in less than 10% of leagues, so you don't have to worry about that. And then Jerry Jeudy had this wild streak where they just gave him so many targets. You remember that DTR game at the end of the year where they just gave him 18 or whatever targets? Just like, these are the grossest targets ever. But he was on my Hound Dog team that made it to the finals.
Nice. Yeah, he went off towards the end of the year. He was kind of fun, even in DFS and stuff. So we'll see what they do this year.
Do you feel proud of Jeudy? Because like from first round wide receiver to pretty much failed in Denver apart from a 3 touchdown game to, okay, you got a contract and you were helpful to us.
Yes. And I mean, not just like a contract, like the Browns paid this dude a lot of money. So we'll see what happens. Steve Smith's just kind of in the corner like, you sure about that? You sure you want to do that?
All right. So for wide receivers to be a league winner, you need some combination of this. You might not find all of them, but if you get double-digit touchdowns, that's great. So like Bateman had 9 touchdowns. We would say like, wow, that's a good outlier total on a site like Underdog that's half-point PPR. You probably need them to be late in a really awesome offense. So Bateman fit that as well last year. And Darnell Mooney fit that he was late and he was on the field a ton. And then Atlanta had these spike moments where they have these huge games and then games that don't matter at all. And then I mentioned the advance rate, 24%. That number is skewed because there are certain wide receivers that mess up all of our data. Jamar Chase last year, Cooper Kupp in 2021 had a 48% advance rate, some Tyreek Hill years that also messed it up. So who is your pick at wide receiver?
Yeah, for these parts of the draft or these kind of league winning situations, I like to target ambiguous rooms, whether sometimes it's running back, which not today, but we talked about that before, or at wide receiver. So we're going right back to the well with Jalen. No, I'm just kidding. Jalen Polk was a disaster last year. 1 year early on Drake May, I will say. But this year, my pick for this, I'm going to cheat a little bit. We've talked about the Niners at length. No need to talk about them at a team level anymore. But it's the Niners not named Brandon Ayuk as far as the pass catchers. And when I look at this team, the opportunity is there for somebody to step forward. I'd be lying if I said I knew who it's going to be, so I have taken a lot of both of these guys on Purdy teams as part of Week 17 bringbacks on Bears stacks, whatever it may be. Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall, and obviously Kittle, but for this section, Jennings and Pearsall, the opportunity is there. Brandon Ayuk is recovering from a multi-ligament ACL injury that includes meniscus damage. We've already heard rumblings about a potential PUP stint, so when is he healthy? When is he 100%? If ever this year, right? Like probably late in the season at best case scenario. Deebo Samuel is gone. They are absolutely counting on these guys to step up. And when you look at Juwan Jennings, I get the downside risk, and I definitely am not like in love with him as a talent or anything, but you got to give the guy credit where credit is due. He was awesome last year. Among all wide receivers with 75 plus targets, he was 12th in yards per out run, 14th in fantasy points per out run. So he got it done when they asked him to. We don't normally see these kind of fourth and fifth year breakouts. So I definitely think it's possible that we look back and we're like, remember that fun Juwan Jennings season? And then it just never happened again. But if that happens, it's probably going to Ricky Pearsall, right? So that's why I'm taking both these guys. Pearsall, a first round pick, entering year 2. Obviously, it was a wild ride as a rookie, given his situation where he got shot in August, days before the season started. So there was a lot of things that went south for him. But when he got the opportunity late in the year, he did something not a lot of guys do. And I know this is a stat you've pulled before. This is in our breakout section of the Ultimate Draft Kit. He had 3 games of 15 plus fantasy points over the final half of the year. There's been 14 rookie wide receivers who have done that over the last decade. 80% of them were a top 24 wide receiver in points per game in their second season. I don't know, man. Those seem like pretty good odds, especially where he goes. So wide receiver 34 for Jennings, wide receiver 41 for Pearsall. You could argue the risks are baked in, and I think now is a great time to get a lot of them because we will get some Ayuk news as training camp gets here in the next couple of weeks. Ayuk will continue to fall, and I think these guys are going to rise up.
It's wild how I've changed my tune on these because I've been taking Pearsall, and we've talked about Pearsall a lot, and I haven't been taking a lot of Jennings. Last year on this podcast, during DFS season, I would say Jennings was like one of the names. Like when I go back throughout the years and I go, man, who are the names that like are the most consistent that we talk about year to year? You know, it's like Kate Otten was like the joke, and he was a consistent name that we brought up, and that was part of it. I feel like Jennings was one of the most consistent dudes that were like, man, he's underpriced again. Do you understand what his first read target share is? And I probably was the idiot who brought that up every single time on the podcast, and it was really, really good. I do agree with you that I am a bit worried that it doesn't hold up moving forward, that he was just super necessary to the offense at the time. And yet, crazy spike games. What was that, week 3 against the Rams? Just, you can't just do that all of a sudden. And he was pretty consistent throughout. I think Pearsall is the better bet with the better draft capital. And so that's where I've been taking it, which is funny because Ricky Pearsall coming in, I was very anti-Ricky Pearsall in Dynasty season. So at the end of the day, what I hear you saying is I want to buy into this offense, and these guys are too cheap.
That's exactly it. It's like if you take CMC, you know, maybe you miss out on Kittle, you can snag one of these guys and grab Purdy on the way back. You know, and like I said, I'm not exclusively taking one guy over the other. I'm trying to mix and match my exposures here and just kind of hope that we land on the right guy in the right team in the right build in the right tournament and kind of get lucky and catch fire. So yeah, just again, banging the drum for the Niners this year is basically the take-home point.
All right, real quick, I want to get your Ayuk take because I'm looking at our rankings and you and I have been pretty much behind, and I usually take your lead with guys that are injured in best ball where I go, okay, I don't know the timelines. I'm not going to try to guess their timeline, but I assume that they are like too high. We did this last year with TJ Hawkinson where he was too high and we just said, hey, like just push him down your rankings, let everybody else take him. And then there will be a point where you can take those players. TJ Hawkinson scored as many touchdowns as you, Betz, this past year, by the way.
Nice.
So Ayuk right now is going around pick 90, and we've kind of been there all along. I've had a couple of drafts where he drops to around pick 100, and I go, I could take him there. I feel a little bit okay with that. So how are you taking that with what you think the injury news will be? Because we don't know exactly how it's going to progress.
I mean, he's obviously ahead of schedule because imagine a world where you're not in the best shape of your life. I know. Tell me, brother. No, in all seriousness, I think there's a decent chance he's starting on PUP, and there will be rumors of that, in my opinion, as we get into camp. He's not almost certainly, he is going to start training camp on PUP. It's not the same thing as regular season, but that in and of itself will cause a little bit of a scare in drafters, and you'll see him fall a little bit. So I've taken him a couple times, only when he's fallen really far past ADP. And I think I've got him in like the 110s or something like that right now in my rankings. Like, to me, it's just, there's no need to draft him where he goes because his ADP will fall. And if you think we're wrong, if you think Ayuk has a late season surge, like, just that's fine. Just wait and get better prices over the next several months. Because like I said, I do think he's going to fall.
All right. So I'm going to mention my wide receiver that I have taken the most. And this is another one of those stances. And maybe I'd love for you to kind of like correct me from a strategy standpoint, because this is not a Falcons fandom take, but Drake London has been consistently a first round player for me all summer, where I've been taking him as high as like pick 10 or 11. Now, you don't have to take him all there all the time, but I have him ranked ahead of other guys. When he was with Michael Penix, which is a small sample size, we're getting insane usage. 48% of the team's first read targets is off the chart stuff. He was targeted on 42% of his routes. That's tied with Puka. It was really good stuff, small sample size. You even take that out. Look at his season as a whole last year, 100 catches, 1,271 yards, 9 touchdowns. That's awesome. That's like really, really good stuff. We kind of forget, apart from just the Penix stuff, he was incredible. He's also just a bully. Like, I came in thinking that Drake London was going to end up being a 50-50 ball guy in the NFL. And he's kind of progressed his game where he has a lot of nuanced stuff in the middle field. He can still do that stuff where he just bodies people and he's just bigger than you. But like, that's the difference between somebody having a Kenny Golladay season where they end up like catching 10 touchdowns because they're big, and the next year they fall off the map, to you're a nuanced guy. It's kind of like Mike Evans has had to reinvent himself a couple of times in his career, as he's not just a big guy. He's not the fastest guy in the league, but he just gets open and he's consistent. Drake London is that dude, wide receiver 9 right now. I have him ranked as a top 12 overall player. And so I get him consistently. And I'm also a sucker, just such a sucker for, if I get Drake London, I'm already going to queue up some Rams in tournaments for that, the late Rams. If it's Jarquez or Corum or Tutu or Whittington or Turd Ferguson, I know that I want that combination because I want that last game. So Drake London, have you been taking him a lot? I haven't really checked in.
Yeah, I have. The problem is there's a lot of guys that go around him that I also really am excited about, like Devon Achane. And if we think the Eagles are going to pass more, A.J. Brown looks awesome. Brock Bowers could break fantasy at tight end, right? Like, there's just so many guys in the second round that are awesome targets that I haven't been overweight with Drake London, but I definitely have taken him for sure. I think the thing that I'm kind of wondering about, and this is what I wrote in my training camp preview article for the Falcons, is just like, where's the truth on Penix as a player? Because it was a 3-game sample. 2 of those games were against the Giants and the Panthers. So it's like, how good is this guy really? When you look at some of the advanced metrics with Penix, he was kind of boom bust. Like, he wasn't the most efficient player in like QBR, and he had some issues in other metrics, but he pushed the ball downfield, really healthy ADOT, which is a calling card of his going back to college. He had a really nice big time throw rate per PFF. So like, there is a range of outcomes that exists where he is providing really big plays for the Falcons pass game. And I think they struggled. They missed that a little bit last year with Kirk Cousins. So if you get the combination for Drake London of the shorter area layup type targets, especially in the red zone that he's been so good at out of the slot, and some targets down the field, that's that profile that can really go nuts in fantasy that we look for. So like I said, I think he's a good target where he goes, but the problem is there's just a lot of really good players he goes around that I find myself kind of just in line with the field.
I wonder if this is going to be one of those takes where I look back and I go, he was good. Let's just say he ends up being a top 8 to 10 wide receiver. And then everybody else is just kind of the same. And I go back, I go, okay, well, I had a stance on this player, and unless he goes off in the fantasy playoffs, it wasn't a differentiator.
Right.
So I wanted to give some other names as a, hey, get out of jail free card. Can I do that?
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so these are later names this year that I have been taking a lot. I mentioned Calvin Ridley because he's cheap.
Okay,
thoughts?
like it.
Okay. Jaden Reed has been the stance that I've taken over Matthew Golden.
I'm not going to lie. I almost went with Jaden Reed for this, this segment. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about him a ton where it's just so frustrating. Like, the talent is there, obviously, but he's not playing in 2 wide receiver sets, which is a major issue. There are some potential signals, or just there's like natural regression in the pass rate for the Packers this year. We talked a little bit about that 2 weeks ago when we talked about Jordan Love for MVP. Like, if they have to throw more, Jaden Reed will be on the field more. And you've got a first-round wide receiver, yes, but we didn't love Matthew Golden coming out. Christian Watson's coming off a torn ACL. Romeo Doubs is in a contract year. Like, I kind of feel like it's going to happen for Jaden Reed. And at wide receiver 43, you're really just asking for Spike Weeks, which you know he can do. So, yeah, I think last year the price got just silly, overinflated, and now it's come back down a little bit too far. That I'm with you. I think he's a really nice target where he goes.
You can live with the frustration in this format.
Yeah, in best ball. And when you have to pick when to start him, that's not fun.
And I did that last year, and it cost me a fantasy championship that I only think about every single day.
Haven't slept since.
I really, and you know what? I'm going to say this out loud. I think I've mentioned this on this podcast. My home league, the one that I care about more than any other else, I have never won bets.
You just don't know ball.
Apparently I don't. It sucks. And you know what? Everybody in my league brings it up every single year. And I have nothing to say. I'm not like, I can't argue. I can't give statistics. I can't bring up that I've been in the finals like 4 times. I can't bring that up, you know?
It's just sad, man. Just sad.
I know. It's sad that I'm even wallowing in it right now. But thanks a lot, Jaden Reed. You're going to be great this year in best ball. And then one more name. I still think Quentin Johnston's a good pick at wide receiver 63.
As long as he's getting routes at that price tag, and if you think Herbert can have a nice year, which obviously if you just listen to the show, we think so, he'll have plenty of spike weeks at that price tag, which was kind of the argument for last year, right? It's like, it doesn't even have to be that good to pay this off. So yeah, makes a lot of sense to me.
I can't believe I'm still talking about huge a couple years in, but I did see it recently. You know, like on Twitter, you get those little things where people are like, the coaching staff says this year it's going to be a breakout. It's like, what are we saying anymore about these kind of players?
Just keep scrolling, man.
Okay, you're right. All right, let's finish with tight ends. Last year we brought up Trey McBride. Here's the criteria, I think, for this position, is you have to read the room. Is this a year where you take elite tight end or do you punt? Last year, if you took elite tight end, you didn't do so well, right? Like it was not beneficial. Kittle was the tight end and he went way later, right? Kittle went in round 6. So
I think so.
Yes, 65th overall. So it was one of those things where if you read the room and you punted and you had 3 tight ends, you could have been completely fine. The advance rate guys last year, Bowers, Gesicki was late. Jonnu was obviously really good. Cade Otton, 4th highest advance rate of tight ends. You tell me.
No big deal.
And Zach Ertz, like those are the kind of names that like really helped last year. But I'm looking for a guy that can be number 1 or number 2 in their offense, potentially, have an outlier touchdown season, have a crazy end of season run. And then I usually like 3 tight end rooms. I've been doing that more this year. I've been taking less Bowers and less McBride. So it's maybe my personality that I've been going less elite tight end. And so I like cobbling together a group of like 2 to 3 or 3 guys.
Makes sense.
All right. So
I also think we have we're on the same wavelength here with our picks. Upside, right?
You want to think about screwed.
This is going to be so bad. Upside in uncertain situations is the theme. You've got a rookie and I've got a rookie. And if you've listened to the Dynasty shows over the offseason, this is on brand. I like Colson Loveland a lot where he goes. 130th overall on DraftKings. He has the Q tag because of his shoulder surgery. He will fall sometimes into the 140s. If you're in a wild room, into the 150s. Sometimes I just got him the other day. Like, it's a great time to get some Colson Loveland. Yes, I get the concerns. He's a rookie. Caleb was not great last year. You're asking a lot of pass catchers to do well. But like, man, I don't know. Rome wasn't that good last year. DJ Moore got reprimanded for his body language and all this sort of stuff. This is the 10th overall pick in the NFL draft. Think about that. On Underdog, where every rookie gets priced up 3 or 4 extra rounds just because we know how valuable rookies are. We are allowed to take the 10th overall pick, sometimes in the 130s, sometimes in the 140s, at a position where we need to swing for the fences to compete with the Bowers and the McBrides and all these guys that go early. Like, I get the downside case, believe me, but I think Colson Loveland is a legit talent. And when I think about how Ben Johnson is going to change things for Caleb to make life easier, went back and looked at what Jared Goff has been doing the last 2 years and what Caleb did last year. The Lions, among the league leaders, nobody had more dropbacks off play action than Jared Goff. Caleb, in the same metric, 17% of his dropbacks. That was 37th among qualified quarterbacks. Come on, Shane Waldron. His ADOT was 8.1, Jared Goff 7.2. So you're going to see a lot more shorter area targets for Caleb, a lot more play action. And I think that could really benefit Colson Loveland. So yeah, is there a world that exists where DJ Moore and Rome are great and Colson Loveland is not great? Of course. But when I'm looking at tight end and trying to find upside, I think the prospect profile for him is awesome. And I am buying into Colson Loveland's talent, especially when he goes in the 130s and 140s.
That's the key point, because I do have a little bit of worry in a crowded offense, but his ADP has slowly just kept dipping, right? Like, where it was around 100 and then just kind of kept, since the draft, you're at a place now where it's palatable, where you're not asking him to be your tight end one only.
Right.
I think like the guy I'm going to bring up too, like, I will have builds where I have 2 tight ends with these guys, but it's very easy to get to 3, especially if I want live players at the very end where I'm going to be taking 3 tight ends for my build. So talent-wise, I agree with it. The last time a tight end was taken 10th overall in my database, Eric Ebron. You tell me.
That's a name.
He had a fun outlier touchdown season. I'm going to take another rookie tight end. I'm going to take Tyler Warren, who went to Penn State. Don't know if you've heard of it. It's a good place for tight ends in the NFL, Betz.
Apparently.
I'm going to whisper it. I'm just going to say it. He might be a my guy.
Oh, I like that. I like it.
It's pretty fun. It's fun to make a tight end your my guy, because if you swing and miss at this rate, who cares? Am I right? You just move on. But no, for real. Let me just give you real quick the Colts scheme last year, because they had the fewest combined receptions for a tight end in the league. 39 receptions for tight end. Didn't matter. 15% of their targets. But if you go at a deeper level, this was the worry about certain coordinators, is they kind of get stuck in the same exact formation. So 49% of their plays last year were 2-by-2 formations, meaning 2 pass catchers on one side, 2 on the other, often a tight end, and the tight end was irrelevant. It's almost like the defense could just look at it and say, like, I don't really care about Mo Alley Cox anymore, or Kylan Granson, or whoever. So it was very predictable, and part of their formation, like whenever they got an 11 personnel, which is 70% of the time, you could just wipe out that. So Tyler Warren is the exact opposite of that. He's a chess piece that you can move all over the board, use out of the backfield. We loved his Wildcat stuff that they used at Penn State. Don't know how much that'll be used, but nobody in college football this past year, even wide receivers included, had more receiving yards versus man coverage than Tyler Warren. I think that he is the type of piece that the Colts need. They obviously drafted him here. They had a need, and they're going to move him all over the field. He also, I will say, he has the dog. We've talked about this in the Dynasty
Certainly
podcast.
does.
The dude just is awesome. So Tyler Warren at tight end 9, 120th overall, that is so cheap. Like, I don't have him as a top 100 player, but I have him higher than this that I've been taking consistently. And you can do 2 tight end builds with Tyler Warren because he's going to see a ton of playing time. And I know you like the Colts better than maybe what the markets say.
Yeah, and I think, when you look at Tyler Warren and the upside case here, it's like, the quarterback play is an obvious concern. But similar to Colson Loveland, this is a talent profile bet, right? 14th overall pick in the NFL draft. In Underdog, normally those guys, if this had wide receiver next to his name for Loveland or Warren, these guys are going in the 5th round, right? Like, and we're getting that discount because they play tight end. So yeah, it might take a little bit for these guys to hit, but when you're thinking about late season upside, if the Colts have to throw more, if Daniel Jones is like serviceable and he keeps the job all year, like, just bet on the profile. At some point, the talent is the most important thing. And I think we're kind of getting to that point here with these 2 guys when you get to 120s, 130s. There's a lot of landmines in this part of the draft anyway. might as well swing for the fences.
And I'll just list a couple of later tight ends as we wrap up the show. I've been taking Mason Taylor, another rookie tight end who's going to see a lot of snaps, Juwan Johnson, and Mike Gesicki as another name that we brought up a couple of different times that's going way too late. Any other names you want to throw in there?
I mean, I've kind of just mixed and matched these late tight ends, looking for basically routes and correlation. So whether it's with my quarterback or week 17 or week 16 stack, but there's no shortage of late tight ends that you could be like, yeah, I can see 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. And when you're looking for like boring vets to kind of bring these rookies along for the ride throughout the season, this is kind of the archetype to mix and match with. So I like those names you throw out there.
That's going to do it for this episode. Make sure you check out all of our content inside the DFS Pass, and make sure you talk to us in Discord. We're going to be talking all things best ball. Betz, say goodbye.
Yes, sir. Hope everybody has an awesome weekend. Get outside now because training camp is right around the corner. And when that happens, training camp's here. You're not leaving the house. We're drafting best ball teams for the rest of the year. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.